What I'm trying to say in the final analysis, once we take control of ourselves, we have to stop being imitators and be innovators. And realize we've got a continent 12 million square miles. Wherever our bodies are on the face of this earth, our cultural and political heartbeat is in Africa. Whether you ever go to Africa or not, that is your home, that is the home of your spirit, and that is the heart and meaning and definition of your commitment. And none of us, any place in the world, will be free until that continent is free.
The Masi Warrior Clan was created because myself and others like Brother Nahisi saw a need for a young African group to analyze information concerning the African phenomena with no bias, with rigor, and with scholarship. We created the Masi Warrior Clan for the purpose of being an expert research team, of being a team that produced products, a team that was capable of producing products for African people globally to dispel myths, rumors, and provide them with accurate scholarship.
streets, Sutek tried to line it up. And he was like, I don't debate y'all. Y'all too disrespectful. Aboriginal Power won't even debate Sean because he's too disrespectful.
He is though. No, he really is though. I can't really like you, bro. You cool. Not a coincidence. I actually chop it up with cuz. But niggas that come off too heated and disrespectful, like I said, I'll debate you, bro. But we gotta get in the ring first. If you want to be disrespectful like that, at least disrespect me in the ring, bro.
Oh, God, bro.
Let's start now, bro. Can you disrespect me in a cage, bro? Like, I'd rather just do that. Then we go straight from the cage. I mean, put your ice on the way to the motherfucking computer, and we'll debate directly after that, nigga. Shit.
That's why I don't need these. Fucking with the nigga and shit. You feel me? Like, it's like, wait, bro, talk like that, man. We gotta get face to face. We can talk to you like that, my nigga.
Yeah, Peanut. You feel me? Go ahead, I got my brother on here. Peanut, what's the word, my brother?
Yeah, I appreciate you, man, but Lucky, let me say this, man. First of all, I'm an older brother. I'm young in spirit because I stay in shape, but I'm older. I deserve respect. Don't lie on me. You're not gonna get nowhere lying, because that's what's gonna make you fall face first. Second of all, I'm well known in the Pan-African community. I'm not nobody new. You're younger than me. You don't know this. I didn't put in work and expose Rob Bourne, Sutek, any of them people over there. They know it deep down inside. And I'm gonna be long-winded. I'm a Moorish American. I already had back and forth with them dude. They erased videos. I'm not running from anybody. Don't ever say that stupid shit again. Third, and last but not least, I'm not losing no debate to no Pan-African, so don't ever say that shit again, famo. And that's it. Appreciate y'all, man.
You heard that? If Sean P want to debate, tell him to debate the champ over here, right?
Sutek wanted so this like it's a pecking order. It's a pecking. So Sean want you and Sutek want him. You say PMF ain't on his
no problem. There's no problem, man. Let's set up the Sutek debate, man. I don't like him anyway.
Okay, so I love that song, brother. I love that warrior mentality.
That's I love to tell Sutek, tell me. There ain't nothing. My champ always in the chat. Album pop in, we'll set a topic, we'll set a date, and we'll make it pay-per-view. We'll chop it up behind the scenes, I get their contact, we'll make it work. So, you heard it right here. He ain't ducking no phase, bro.
But that's what I'm saying. He do this over here on y'all channel, and then when we get in other
hey, alright, I will block your ass, nigga, because I'm well known for disrupting them chats over there. Nigga, stop fucking lying, nigga. You a goofy, nigga. I would never let a lame ass nigga around me in my face, clown.
You gonna block me?
It ain't no time I ain't ever been on the Pan-African channel and made my impact. Stop lying. I'm a real man, bro. Stop lying, fam. Don't do PNF like that.
PNF, he trying to trigger you, brother.
Word the fuck up.
But listen, he did that to me, talking about, word on the street, I'm ducking from John P. I've never even had but one conversation with this little disrespectful motherfucker.
Oh, okay, yeah, he a little hot. He like that.
So he like...
Y'all find an African in my fucking family, but y'all ain't find y'all own genealogy. Shut the fuck up. That don't make sense, for one. Listen, y'all don't know what y'all did.
I don't feel like you standing on business.
Y'all lied on me, because y'all don't even know if that's me. And if y'all can trace that shit back to it's me, it's only 2 people in YouTube that got my information.
Yeah, he died by his own genealogy. You ain't an Indian, you ain't got a lot of me. Half of this track, best believe you lose a lot of sleep. Probably because you made it up to us honestly. You ain't a Cherokee, you ain't a Chickasaw, you ain't a Blackfoot, nigga get lost. You just a fool with low comprehension. So I gotta come through with the henchmen. NAC, Sean P, Shy Son, Lucky. Don't forget Jay, got no time to play. Caught an apple slipping with his genealogy. Now he's a con and I ain't talking about a singer. I'm coming for the top apple leader. He ain't a teacher, he's a preacher. He can't keep up, so we leave him. Yeah, he died by his own genealogy. You ain't an Indian, you ain't got a lot of me. Half of the track, best believe you lose a lot of sleep. Probably because you made it up to us possibly. You ain't a Cherokee, you ain't a Chickasaw, you ain't a Blackfoot. Nigga, get lost. You just a fool with low comprehension. So I gotta come through with the henchmen. NAC, Sean P, Shy Son, Lucky. Don't forget Jay, got no time to play. Caught an apple slipping off his genealogy. Now he's a con. OTK, TKO. Now he's a con. OTK, you died. TKO genealogy.
Peace to everybody out there, man. It's your boy Sean P in the place to be. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend, We're live. I hope all is well with everybody out there in these streets. I know it's been a minute. And I don't know what the hell y'all been doing. Can you please let me know if I sound choppy or distorted, or if you have any problems hearing me? Put a 1 in the chat if I'm clear. Put a 2 in the chat if I'm spotty. Appreciate that proper perspective. I can't take credit for it. That's why I the truth track. I know there's a delay, so waiting on that. For those of you who are catching the replay, please feel free to comment, express your opinions, thoughts, or whatever the case may be. As you can see from the title, Looking for Blood, and how the Aboriginal lie try to fool us. And I'm going to play a clip from a show. And that's about it. I'm going to try to let the clip play to get the context. May play it 3 times. But we need to get that just so that we can get to the bottom of what we need to get into. And then we're going to deal with the issues and problems that we actually have. While I was having fun in the sun the last few days, not a coincidence, had hit me up. He just sent me a message, or sent me a text message, and I was unable to get the text message until I was able to have access to my cell service once I got situated. And he said there was this gentleman on another channel who was perpetrating a fraud, running around here acting like he didn't run from a debate that was positioned and proposed to him over a year and some change ago. However, I don't know how that exchange went. I haven't got the gist of the conversation, but hopefully I do get to run down and have that conversation with Knock, and then kind of get caught up on what's been going on. And I know they've been running rampant over there where they are. So from the last time that I actually went live up until this point, I realized that what's his dude name? Denzel. What's his name? Hold on. Let me get y'all Robert Denzel or some weird ass some name. We ain't calling him nothing else but his name. for right now. Y'all know him as Bap, but his name is Denzel Calvin Roberts. So Denzel Calvin Roberts did a show, changed the name of the show, calling himself the voice of the Aborigines. Uh-oh. Hey, hey, hey. And we're going to deal with some craziness, of course. He even had Betty on the platform. Excuse me. Betty on the platform and some old crazy stuff. Y'all see that? This bottle of water, $6 for Lauderdale Airport. Anyway, so let's just really get into it, man. I know a lot of people will be late. I haven't been live in quite some time, so usually when you're not live like that and notifications not coming through, you're really not gonna know what's going on. You probably on YouTube. Let me make it bigger. As you can see, there is a source on the screen, and because there's a source on the screen, it gives us the ability of being able to put things into proper perspective. However, I probably need to go back earlier on into this show. I'm trying to make sure. And I want everybody to kind of hear out this argument. And the name of the show is The Term Indian is Just Like the Word Black, More, Colored, and African American. He seeks to say, here's why. So what we're looking for, right, is how's the word Indian related to those specific words, Black, More, Colored, and African American. Notice there's no white there. There's none of that there, right? And so we're going to get directly on into what he got going on. And we're going to let him get his spill on. And I'm going to be quiet. And I'm going to let him spill his shit.
Chat. We want to make sure that we're clear. Want to make sure that we're clear on some of these motherfucking terms. All right. We want to make sure we're clear. All right, drop a fire emoji in the chat, man. Hey, y'all already know the vibes too, man. Support the channel, man. Support the channel that actually supports you. All donations is welcome. This channel is not monetized. We're going to get into a nice, healthy dialogue. We're going to try to break down some critical information. So, hey, y'all bear with me, man. Hey, no point intended. Copper Grizzly said, bear with me. You feel me? Hey, man, that's going to be one of them series, man. Hopefully you guys get to enjoy that and really be able to some information that y'all will be able to give to your kids, to your neighbors, to friends, to anyone. Is very kid oriented, child friendly, adult friendly, grandma friendly. It's for what we need, man. Shout out to everybody in the building that's in the building. Make sure y'all support the channel. We do got the $5 challenge in effect. $5 challenge for you guys to support all Aboriginal Indigenous platforms, content, and information by simply sending in a donation with a $5 donation with a nice note attached to it, you know, giving credence or appreciation for the content and the time the brothers are able to put out for you guys. But man, y'all already know it ain't official till we get the missile. You understand? And I ain't heard a whistle. Let me shout out the chat that's in the building, man. It's your brother, Aboriginal Power, man, the hood scientist, the hood journalist, Copper Grizzly, man. Y'all already know what it is. Y'all already know. Shout out to Big Dog Philly OG, James Lattimore, Stacky, King Serpentine. We got Gable. We got my sister Empress Goddess Namo in the building. Bronze Flat Powers in her with a simple amazing. The Serpent God, King Morpheus, the original, is in the building. We got my big sister Chicka Harmony Roots in the building. Junebug is in the building. Benny Wiggins is in the building. Humble Up is in the building. Sun Baby is in the building. Charles Clark is in the building. Mario 813 is in the building, man. Turn me up. Y'all know my slogan, man. Tribe up, wise up, rise up, man. Shout out to the indigenous aborigines. Y'all see the title. The term Indian is just like the word black, more, color, African American, etc., etc. You understand what I'm saying? So we kind of want to break down these terms and what these terms mean. So if y'all can just follow along with the guide, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to get straight into it. So we're going to start off with the first word that most people often like to bring.
All right, so here we go. He's up first with his shit show.
Credence. We're gonna use the term in.
He's up first. He's up first with his shit show. So you can already tell how this is going. Okay. You can already tell how elementary this shit is gonna go. Hit the like button for me, please, ladies and gentlemen. Damn, man. Why y'all can't come in here and wipe y'all feet like ladies and gentlemen wipe their feet? When I go to y'all shows, man, I like y'all shows. Even if I don't comment in the chat, I like y'all shows and just be quiet and listen to y'all. For those of you who have shows. What about Lou? What's good? But here come the shit show already. Okay, so first up, the first definition according to etymology. Let's listen to these etymological fallacies coming.
Indigenous. What does the term indigenous means to you guys? What does the term indigenous mean to you guys in the chat? Every one of those terms you have in your title is a term used for reclassification. Absolutely. Absolutely, brother. And so let's get into it. So the term indigenous, right? A lot of us use this term to quantify who he is, right? It is a blanket term, but it is generally speaking of some type of people that reside in a land. All right, so we're going to go with the word indigenous. It is an adjective. It means born or originating. So you could be born in a particular place, or you could be the original people of a place. And you both are considered indigenous. Okay, so let's just say an Asian that comes over here and that's born in America, and just say his parents have children, and that those children are born in America. Those children are indigenous. And let's just say there's people that's always been here, and so those people are also considered indigenous. And this is in particular places. So either born or originated in a particular place. 1640s from late Latin. Indigenous, born in a country. Native. So we're going to get to the word native in just a second. Native, from Latin, indigening, sprung from the land. Native, as a noun, a native, literally inborn or born in a place, parentheses. From Old Latin, indu, parentheses, prep, in with. All right, to beget, produce, give birth, beget, with derivatives referring to the procreation of familiar in tribe groups. So it's quantitative information. It's a term that could be used, but it isn't specific. It isn't inclusive. Okay. So let's move on to the next words. Are we clear on what the word indigenous means, you guys? This is a noun. And we got indigene. That's a whole different concept. We'll bring that up later. We'll see that reference. So we're going to go on to the next term that was referenced in this dialogue, which was the term native. The term native was also referred to in that definition. So we're going to try to go in order with this. So we got the term native. What does the term native mean?
Okay, for those of you who are probably tuned in and listening now to this shit show, I don't know who's wrong with these. I don't know, bro. So he titled this video again. The term Indian is just like the word black, more, colored, and African American. Here's why. He began with indigenous, right? He began with indigenous. Then he walked on forward, and now he's at native. Okay. Now he ain't gave you too much because he ain't dealing with the etymology or the root of the word because he ain't dealing with that. He doesn't understand semantics and syntax. Right? But he's semantically disrupting every goddamn word that was meant to be in this place. And what he's looking for, ladies and gentlemen, is key words inside of these words. That is why he's on the word native. So he went from indigenous, which basically means born or originating in a particular place. Now he's a native, natural, inborn, hereditary, connected with something in a natural way. From old French, native or native, born in, raw, unspoiled. So he's there with this shit show. Okay? What he has to do now, after reading all of these, is he has to show us that Indian derived from words that were the same and have the same meaning and explanation. So does the word, now notice, he said in his title, the term Indian is just like the word black, more, colored, and African American. Here's why. Then he took us to indigenous as the first word. Then he took us to native as that word. Ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting to see how the relationship, these words, what relationship does these words have as they are derived, and do they mean the same thing? Are they just alike? Is Indian like black? Is Indian like Moor? Is Indian like colored? Is Indian like African American? Has Indian been used interchangeably in the same way that black, Moor, colored, and African American has been? There are questions that I have, and we have not yet begun to get our answer as he begins his build. He started with the etymology of the word indigenous, and now he's at the etymology of the word native. And let's see him continue his linguistic gymnastics.
To you guys in the chat. What does it mean to you guys in the chat? What does the term native? So the term indigenous referred to native born. So we're going to go to the word native to get a clear definition of what that means. So native, an adjective, late 14th century, native. You see it right here. Natural, inborn, here dietary. Connected with someone in a natural way. Okay. Born in, raw, unspoiled, and directly from Latin native, innate, produced by birth. Okay. Born, to be born, related to beget, give birth, beget derives from referring to procreation groups as well. From earlier 15th century.
Read the shit. Don't sit here and do all of that. Read it. Because clearly you ain't comprehending what the hell you're reading. This is where he comes. This is where the problem lies, ladies and gentlemen, right here. From the early 15th century, as born in a particular place of indigenous origin or growth, not exotic or foreign, also of or pertaining to one by birth, as in native land, also used from the early 15th century in a now obsolete sense of bound, born in servitude or serfdom, of metals, minerals, etc., occurring in a pure state of nature, 1690s.
Born in a particular place of indigenous origins or growth, not exotic or foreign, also pertaining to one's by birth. Also, so the term indigenous and the term native, by definition, can be easily interchangeable. Their definitions almost run and merge with one another. Are you guys with me, family? We're just slowly cooking here. We just slowly cooking here. Are y'all with me? I want to make sure that the family is with me. Make sure y'all support the channel too, man. These are the bills that y'all need to be supporting the live streams on, man. Don't be a buster. There's a lot of haters in here that ain't gonna like this information, but we're gonna get to it. So the term native is easily just this link to the word indigenous. So we're gonna go to another term. We're gonna go to one of the family's favorites, the term Indian. So we're gonna pull up the term Indian. It is also an adjective. What does the term Indian mean to you guys? I would like for you guys to put that in the chat. Also, share the live stream, hit that like button. It sends an algorithm key to this new software that YouTube is running off of to push the content out there. So make sure you share the live stream. Make sure you hit the like button. And most importantly, family, get into the comment section at the end of the video. Let me know how you feel. That also pushes the content out. Get into those comment sections. Let's continue these conversations in the comment section at the end of these live streams. All right. So an Indian, adjective, and also a noun. We're gonna get to both. So it's both. So an inhabitant of India or South Asia pertaining to India, and this is in 13th century. All right, and it's a noun and an adjective. Off the rip, I'm not liking the beginning coordinates of the word Indian. Off the rip, it's describing someone outside of the America in its initial definition. But we're going to get into it. We're going to
remember this. He said he does not like this word and its meaning because it is describing someone that is outside of the Americas. And now he's going to say that he's going to get in it a little later. This is a key point in what's going on as it pertains to the word Indian. Now, none of these words that he began with, indigenous, native, has anything to do with what's going on with the words Indian, meaning black, more colored, or African American. Notice when he went to the word Indian, right? When he went to the word Indian, right? It had no relationship with black, more colored, and African American. None.
We're going to break this thing down and we're going to get into it, okay? An inhabitant of India or South Asia pertaining to India, noun and adjective, from late Latin, Indius, from India, applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants of the Americas from at least 1553. As a noun in 1610, as an in 1610 as an adjective, okay, reflecting Spanish and Portuguese use. So that means the earliest use come from Portuguese when we see it in America, and instead of it referring to Indians, and by the 1500s, it's being applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants. So the term Aboriginals here, we're going to have to get to that term and describe what does that mean.
Say that again.
Noun in an adjective. Off the rip, I'm not liking the beginning coordinates of the word Indian. Off the rip. It's describing someone outside of the America in its initial definition. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna break this thing down and we're gonna get into it. Okay. An inhabitant of India or South Asia pertaining to India, noun in adjective. From late Latin, Indius. From India, applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants of the Americas from at least 1553 as a noun in 1610 as an in 1610 as an adjective. Okay, reflecting Spanish and Portuguese use. So that means the earliest use come from Portuguese when we seen it in America.
Okay, so the earliest use of this word comes from who? Who you say the earliest use?
Noun in an adjective. Off the rip, I'm not liking the beginning coordinates of the word Indian. Off the rip. It's describing someone outside of the America in its initial definition. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna break this thing down and we're gonna get into it. Okay. An inhabitant of India or South Asia pertaining to India, noun in adjective. From late Latin, Indius. From India, applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants of the Americas from at least 1553 as a noun in 1610 as in 1610 as an adjective. Okay, reflecting Spanish and Portuguese use. So that means the earliest use come from Portuguese when we seen it in America, and instead of it referring to Indians and by the 1500s, it's being applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants. So the term Aboriginal is here. We're going to have to get to that term and describe what does that mean. And we're going to get to that. So it's earlier Portuguese use on the mistaken notion that America was eastern end of Asia. So even within the definition of the term Indian, even though it was applied to America, they were under the notion that this is part of Asia. So these must be part of the Indians. This is what they're saying, a mistake notion. Okay. It is also used occasionally in the 18th, 19th century of any inhabitant of the Philippines, and indigenous peoples of Australia and in New Zealand. Okay. Red Indian, distinguished to the Native Americans from inhabitants of India. So we're not going to get into the Red Indian because that's not a social term that we use.
Oh, why you ain't getting into the Red Indian? You gotta share with these people. Don't dodge that. Don't dodge the Red Indian.
The term Aboriginal is right here. So the term Indian is a noun and an adjective, and it's a mistake notion at best. In other words, another misnomer, and it's not exclusive or specific to one particular group of people. Okay, are y'all with me, family? Drop a five.
He said this word is not exclusive to a certain group of people. Damn. This dude. This damn. One more time.
America. So the term Indian was a term that was placed on Aboriginal people. So let's see who the Aboriginal people are. Okay, make sure y'all support the channel, man. Y'all supposed to be hitting that motherfucker. All right, so let's go. 1660s, first earliest existent from the beginning. Okay, this is from 1660s, meaning first earliest existing from the beginning. All right, especially in reference to inhabitants of a land colonized by Europeans. Okay, so this particular term is referring to the first people or earliest existence, and that's at least according to when the time Europeans got there. So at least by the time Europeans started exploring, the people that they call Aborigines was the people that was there from the beginning to their ordinance, or that was there before them, or from this earliest times. All right, from Aborigines. See, Aborigine, Al. All right, it says the Pacific Australian sense is attested from 1820. So later on, the term Aborigine or Aboriginal were applied to Australians in the 1820s. But in the 1660s, it was applied to Americans. I mean, to Aborigines of any existent people, okay? So we're going to go down to the term Aborigines, which is the noun. So we got the adjective and the noun, okay? Person, animal, or plant that has been born in a country or a region from earliest times, similar to the term Aborigine. Aboriginal, okay, which one means plural, one means singular. One means plural, one means singular. Okay, so now listen, it said in 1858, mistaken singular of Aborigines. So they thought Aborigines was singular in the 1850s. It's a mistake. Aborigines is referring to multiple people of the Aboriginal sense. So now in 1540s, right, the term Aboriginal is correct for singular, and that's in English use. This is 1540s.
I'm letting them get it all out.
From Latin Aborigines, first inhabitants, especially of Latium, hence the first ancestors of the Romans. This is possible a tribal name. Or
at what point do anybody in the chat agree with what he just said? If you agree, say you agree. If you disagree, say you disagree, and then you can explain why you disagree, because we already know of people who agree. You ask them why they agree, they cannot articulate their answer.
Made from the confirm of the Latin phrase ab origine, which literally means from the beginning. That's what aborigine means. This is from ab, the word ab, that's what y'all like to bring up all the time, means off, away from. Okay, it means a rise, commencement. Okay, beginning, the source, descent, lineage, birth. All right, it also has lineage, birth, from stem or aura, arise, or just rise, be born, be descended, or to receive life. All right, and extended by 1789, almost 200 years later, the natives of the other countries which Europeans had colonized, especially Aboriginals of Australia, with the capital A. The Australia English is slang shortened to Abo to attest in 1922. So Abo is a term that was used to describe to describe the indigenous people of Australia as a slang and social term. Okay. Okay, so we're reading up the full definitions. And then look, when we go to the term American, 1540s, all right, 1570s. The term Aboriginal was being used in 1540s. So by the time 1570s come, the term American has been used. Okay, but now let's see what the term American means. Originally, one of the Aboriginal peoples discovered in the Western Hemisphere by Europeans. So it's talking about the Aboriginal peoples of America described here originally. Okay, So we're gonna go to another term that we probably might not use as often, but it's the term atanchan. Shout out to Atanchanist One. For those that don't know what the term atanchan means, we're gonna try to get into it. We're gonna try to get into it. I don't know what the hell going on. We're gonna try to get into it. So the term atanchan, 1640s. One sprung from the soil he inhabited. All right, from Latinized from Greek autotachon, Aborigines, natives, or primitive inhabitants, literally sprung from the land itself. Okay. So Atanchanist means native, aboriginal, indigenous. It incorporates all three of these terms, and this is by 1805. It is the opposite of allo-Atanchanist, or whatever the hell that is. So the term Atanchan means one who sprung from the soil, straight out the soil that he inhabits. So are we clear on some of the sciences that we just broke down, family? If there are any questions in the chat, I would love to answer some of those. If anyone is confused or have any questions, I would love to get some of you guys and questions in right quick.
All right. So from everything that he basically just said, from the etymology website, he did not demonstrate how the word Indian is just like the word black, Moor, colored, and African American. Okay, that is how he opened up in his shit. Now, I'm gonna let him continue, and then we're gonna get in, and then I'm gonna skip ahead. But I need him to continue first so that you can digest the stupidity.
Before we move on to some of the so-called culture of the alleged Indians compared to some of the Aboriginal inhabitants, better known as the mound builders, better most known as Mississippian culture or Adena culture. And so we're going to break this down and compare and show cultural differences while also showing archaeological overlap to create two categories of cultures in America. Okay, so do you guys have any questions before we proceed in today's live stream, family? Do we got any questions? Question was, there was Africans here at those times. If so, would the Europeans they distinguished the Indians from the Africans? Well, we're talking about at the beginning of time. So if you're claiming that a so-called African is here from the beginning of his time, I wouldn't consider him an African at that point.
What?
But if you're talking about a culture of the alleged Indians compared to some of the Aboriginal inhabitants, better known as the mound builders, better most known as Mississippian culture or Adena culture. And so we're going to break this down and compare and show cultural differences while also showing archaeological overlap to create two.
How the fuck can you show an archaeological overlap? What does that mean? What does an archaeological overlap mean? What does it constitute? How are you taking archaeology and showing an overlap? Are you meaning continuity? Are you trying to say that the shit was the same throughout these particular time periods, which there was not? You immediately was talking about some bullshit, and then you skipped all the way up into the Mississippian period, which would be the AD era of existence. So even in the AD era of existence, you still have a pre-Mississippian culture. You still have two other types of culture that exist before the Mississippian, and then you got the Paleolithic period. You have the Paleo-Indian period that predates all of that. Now, I don't know what the question was in the chat because we can't see that, and you didn't put that on the screen. But whoever the fuck said that Africans came over here first, and if they was here first, you don't consider them no longer African? How in the holy fuck could you make that statement? How did you take the Africanness up out of the African? How? How, bro? Genetically speaking, how could you take every single inch, not inch, marker, placement, genetic, well, when I say marker, genetic marker of a person representing that Africanness? How could you remove those the Africanness out of that and then Americanize it? Motherfucker, they're still African, genetically African. Their expressions African, cultural linguistic efforts African. The nuances of what culture means African in its origin. So how could you strip somebody of their Africanness? It's crazy. Their hair, their language, their lingo. Yeah, we ain't even got to speak an African language. We can remix and do words the way we want to do them to show our Africanness. The way we cook foods, sing songs, creativity. We can dive into all of that. But the mere fact that you just tried to say some archaeological overlap like that was some type of reality is bananas. Say that stupid shit again.
Culture of the alleged Indians compared to some of the Aboriginal inhabitants.
What up, not a coincidence?
Better known as the mound builders. Better most known as Mississippi.
Everything that he was reading from Melanated Goddess comes from the etymology of those words. He was on etymology.com. So he would put a word in, and then he would only give you pieces of the word. And what etymology aims to do is show you the origin of the word, like its birthplace, where it comes from, how it evolved, what it evolved from, and then how it morphed into other meanings if there's another meaning for the word. Right? That's what the etymology online is supposed to do, to show you the history of the word through and through up until present. However, he is not using etymology correctly. He is using it only to justify those in words that are inside of the main word that's being mentioned here. As an example, as you can see on the screen in the little small slide, Aboriginal. It's going to go in there, and at some point you're going to see something that says original inhabitant or native or Tachan. Then he's going to go to that word, and then he's going to give you that word. He's going to give you their talking points. But none of that has to deal with the term Indian, it being just like the word black, more colored, and African American. But I am going to let him finish up a little bit, and then I can rebuttal what's on the screen, and we could deal with this shit using real information versus the skepticism and the make-believe shit.
Mississippian culture or Adena culture. And so we're going to break this down and compare and show cultural differences while also showing archaeological overlap to
Can some fucking body show me how you're going to take culture and show an archaeological overlap? First of all, what the fuck does culture, the significance of culture, can you break that down, bro? Can we understand what does archaeology and culture have in common? Are you saying that the archaeological records and evidence that has been presented was driven by people with a said culture? Then fucking come up with a better way to say that shit. You're trying to say culture and then we're going to show the archaeological overlap. What the fuck is the archaeological overlap? You stay trying to use some type of buzzword to make yourself sound more educated than you are, nigga. You ignorant. You're about one of the dumbest motherfuckers out here, and you're showing it by simply saying what the fuck you're saying right now about archaeological overlap. Nigga, you worse than fucking Jesse Jackson making up words. Like, you can't freestyle your way into intelligence. Nigga, intelligence ain't consumed and expressed and demonstrated in the likes of you trying to say some shit. Y'all really think that you could wordplay us into making us think that you read? Nigga, you are stupid. You don't read. There's no effing way on planet Earth you're about to tell me that by putting archaeology and overlap in the same sense, and it's gonna mean something flamboyant. You just figured out some shit no one else did. No one in the field of archaeology has ever used archaeological overlap at all. And just for the simple record, when you're dealing with culture, you have to go into a whole nother subfield to deal with culture. Culture is going to deal with anthropology. Culture is under the study of anthropology. Culture is not under the study of archaeology. Those are two different fields of study. One more time for the motherfuckers in the back that was listening to this shit and just felt dumb after hearing this shit. Ladies and gentlemen, culture is under the study of anthropology. It is not under the study of anthropology. So there cannot be an anthropolitical overlap. I said anthropolitical overlap. My apologies. An archaeological overlap. Goddamn. He got me trying to correct his dumb shit. Listen, you cannot have an archaeological overlap with culture when culture is all under the study of anthropology. It is a sub-study. That's why you have a book that you could read called Cultural Anthropology, which goes on and talks more about people. Anthropology talks about people and how culture is developed, how language is a measuring stick, how all these other things that we deal with in our natural world under our own creation, it explains those things. Archaeology ain't doing what anthropology does. But what happens is you have anthropologists and archaeologists and all these other fields come together during excavations to explain away what has transpired during a dig, an archaeological dig, because they start asking archaeologists start asking anthropologists questions. Anthropologists studying human beings, behaviors, and all these other nuances can answer the archaeologist's questions. So how the fuck you got an archaeological overlaps?
Create two categories of cultures in America. Okay, so
how does archaeology create culture? Wouldn't anthropology answer this question more appropriately, the right goddamn way? But you didn't know nothing about that, so I'm gonna say it one more time. Archaeology is us looking at some sites, understanding that we have something of importance here, but it doesn't tell us why it was built. It doesn't give us the reasons for it. Anthropology is going to do all of that. Oh, this nigga, bro. This nigga give you a headache. Listen, I'd have had a good time. I've been out on the ocean. You know what I'm saying? Connecting with every time I see the Atlantic Ocean, I think about the ancestors and their travels from 4,000 miles away into these areas in which I visited and sat there and just kind of soak all of that up in, like, what happened here 300 years ago, 200 years ago, 400 years ago. Like, I was on that type of time. And I actually was, when I was at sea, I was at peace. And now that I'm not at sea no more, and I'm back in the motherfucking States, and I'm in this motherfucking land on this laptop right now, and I'm listening to this motherfucker, I ain't missed shit. These are the same stupid mofos that is continuing to lie. Talking about archaeological overlap, nigga, and in reference to culture. No. Building a mound or mounds or referring to mound builders, the mounds is going to be your archaeological sites that prove people existed in these areas and that these mounds were made by people. Now, what was the reason and the purpose of the mounds? You're going to have to understand and study the people's culture, which you're going to use anthropologists to explain away what led into building fucking mounds and the relevance of those mounds and the significance of those mounds to those people. But you done confused away all of this shit. And you probably had 150, 200 people listening to this dumb shit, and you just rambled the fuck on. Unchallenged, uncorrected, unintelligently showing your ignorance. Calvin Denzel.
You guys have any questions before we proceed in today's live stream, family?
And then you had the audacity to ask dumbass motherfuckers question if they had a question. The same dumb motherfuckers is just as dumb as you are. You gonna ask they dumbass a question. How about you ask an intelligent motherfucker a question? How about you allow an intelligent motherfucker to challenge your stupid ass?
Do we got any questions? Question was, there was Africans here at those times.
So listen to this. Somebody in the chat said that there was Africans here at that time, which is wrong. And there ain't no evidence for that shit. It's wrong. But listen to this nigga respond to somebody. He thinks somebody in the chat is asking a question. This motherfucker in the chat made a statement. He said, man, there was Africans here at that time. That's his belief. Whoever's saying this shit But listen to what this motherfucker say.
If so, would the Europeans would have?
Here go the question. There was Africans here at that time. That's a statement. Now it's if so. If so. This nigga don't even know how to ask a question, and this nigga don't even know how to read it.
Do we got any questions? Question was, there was Africans here at those times. If so, would the Europeans would have they distinguished the Indians from the Africans? Well, we're talking about at the beginning of time. So if you're claiming that a so-called African is here from the beginning of his time, I wouldn't consider him an African at that point.
What the fuck is he about? If he ain't African no more, what the fuck is he? Listen to the question again, y'all.
Do we got any questions? Question was, there was Africans here at those times. If so, would the Europeans would have they distinguished the Indians from the Africans? Well, we're talking about at the beginning of time. So if you're claiming that a so-called African is here from the beginning of his time, I wouldn't consider him an African at that point. But if you're talking about upon arrival of Europeans, then we're going to have to get into some cultural differences, because there are letters that show unique differences in between the so-called blacks, if you will, of Africa and the blacks of America. There's particular letters from the 1500s, 1519, 1542, and I believe in between that time, that's referring to these indigenous peoples, as like Jesuit letters and things of that nature. As a matter of fact,
man, ain't no goddamn Jesuit letter. You ain't got a fucking Jesuit letter in 1519, 1524, 1544, 1555, calling the motherfucking people over here black. At all. At all.
Give me 2 seconds. I may be able to pull this up for my brother real fast, just to give a reference. I appreciate the question. I do love the question. It allows me to get into a bag of information. So we do appreciate those questions. Okay, we do appreciate those. So we're going to try to get into one of these, or at least two of these that's on the screen. All right, so let's go back to his original question, and we're going to pull up some of the stuff that I have pulled up. So his initial question that he just asked, was the Africans here? I will say no. Well, the question is, was the Africans here?
Now we can see the question. And this nigga got Bay at the end of his name. Questions. Was there Africans here at those times? So he asked the question, but Bap read the shit wrong. So the first thing he could have said was yes, or he could say no. But he decided to say if there was, he wouldn't consider them African. Next. If so, how would the European, what? If so, how would how would they distinguish the Indian from the African? Then this dude went on to say what he said. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's an answer to this question. They never confused the African or the Indian with one another. In every example of information that has ever been presented to us, there's not one source that says that the Indians and the Africans were one and the same, ever. In the earliest descriptions that we have on the first peoples that was encountered by the Columbus and anyone behind Columbus, none of them said that they were the same. Now, he has a portion of Jack Forbes' statement up here. Illegitimately, he's about to fuck this up. Let's go.
At those times, I would say no. And if so, how would the Europeans know how and to distinguish them from the Indians? Okay. All right. Well, besides cultural practices, let's just get on off of a physiognomy practice. So here go a couple letters from the 1519. This is an example from Brazilians, the Sino Nano, Korea. They're describing these people as black. All right. And the author continues his comments in appearance, the natives of America from the Jesuit letters. Now listen, in 1524, in the Carolina coast, they were said of people to be of dark skin, not much unlike the Ethiopian. So they're comparing them to the Ethiopian, but also making distinguished characteristics to saying that they're not these people. Okay, so listen, when you see the term Negro and Indios, this is being interchanged when it's referring to native people, not when it's describing African people. When they're describing
you stupid motherfucker. The terms Negro and Indios were used interchangeably to describe the natives in the journals of early missionaries who could not have possibly been referring to Africans. Why is you, bro, all you got to do is just say this. There's an explanation for why Jack Forbes says this. He says because everyone outside of the way that these fucking European people, the Spanish, looked, the way the Spanish looked at everybody else, if you were darker complected than they were, whether you've been tawny, olive, or whatever the fuck, not olive, if you were a shade darker than what they were, they called your ass Negro. Negro de terra is a word that Jack D. Forbes using, describing when they did Negro de terra. He's telling you who they're referring to. And then you finna sit here and say, remix his words to make it say whatever the fuck you want to say. Like we can't read.
African people are calling them Negro de Guinea, the Guinea men. And so it's a different term.
So how the fuck did you get Negro de Terras and Negro de Guinea? How you get that? Both of them are Negro. He's saying Negro de Terras, Negro de Guinea. But what your mistake is that you're trying to equate the word Negro to mean what it means today. And it don't mean what it means today. It don't have an evolutionary period back then to what it had to evolve into what it is today. Back then, they just was calling every goddamn body that they didn't have a word for that. There wasn't Negroes in America. It's not what he's saying.
So the term Negroes and the term Indios was placed on our people was similar to the way they use Guinea men on all the coast of West Africa. These terms were slowly being developed during this time. So listen, it said the terms Negroes and Indios was used interchangeably to describe the natives in the journal of early missionaries who could not have possibly been referring to Africans. So in 1549 through 1565, the letters of the Jesuit missionaries in Brazil usually addressed the Cailes of Portugal and Spain, frequently refers to the Americans as Negroes. In April of 1549, Manuel Nobogra, the leader of the Jesuits, addressed a letter from somebody Rodriguez in Lisbon, in which he refers to the Portuguese in Brazil as living in the sand because of them having so many Negroes and lots of children by these Negroes. And the term Negroes is exclusively referring to Black women in the Americas. So now thus the father called the American woman living with the Portuguese man Negroes, a term which is according to Lay and to donate people from, and it cannot have been donated.
You said it, nigga. We heard you. Donated, denoted. That's why we like for y'all to read, because you don't know how to fucking read. Grown ass man, 40 something years old, and you don't fucking know how to see the word mean denoted. And then you got this stupid ass nigga in the chat. He don't even know what the fuck he talking about.
It could not have been describing the people from Africa when they talking about Negroes. It's talking about the women in particular. And when you go back to other letters, when they're referring to women.
No, motherfucker. Finish reading the rest of it. Look, read the rest of it. There were few or no African women in Bahia. Nonetheless, Nombrenga uses the word Indio. When Africans are referred to in the Jesuit letters, they are always called Negroes de Guinea, Blacks of Guinea. To distinguish them, what does it say? To distinguish them from Negroes de Terra, Blacks of the land of Americas. Now you got to figure out why they calling them Blacks of Guinea and why they call them Blacks of Americas. Because they don't have another word to explain explain away who these people were, because they did not look white. What's happening? Wagwan.
They call them the Guineas and stuff like that. And those terms are interchangeable for men and women and the continent of Africa. Okay. So now listen, this was in 1549. There were few or no African women in the Baja regions. Nonetheless, Nobrega used the term Indio, excuse me.
I didn't make up anything. All you got to do is read the footnote to Jack D. Forbes' book, and he tells you in the fucking footnotes that they had no other word for explaining who these people were. That's why when Columbus on October 11th sent there and gave a description, not one description, he gave two separate descriptions. In his first description of the people that he saw, he said that they were not black nor white, that they looked Oriental, like the Orientals. Then you have in Jack D. Forbes' book, He even tells you if you read the fucking book, he is telling you in the book verbatim that forget the word Negro in the modern sense of the word. The Portuguese and the Spanish clearly don't have another word for who they saw. That is why you got to go back to Columbus. The Jesuits are telling you that themselves that they're neither black nor white. They're not black like the people in Africa. So think about this, and this is for all the Aboriginals out here. This is the craziest shit right here that I'm about to say to these people. If in Jack D. Forbes' book, he is telling you that these Negroes in the Americas are nothing like the Negroes in Africa, then all black people in the Americas today are the black people from Africa. Process that. He's telling you that the black people that they seen in Africa are not in America. According to the Jesuits and the way this has been broken down and how we've been going through Jack D. Forbes shit for years, he's telling you clearly these are two distinct groups of people and they ain't the fucking same. Yo black ass, Guinea. Them little Mexican motherfuckers, the terror. Unfortunately, you can't comprehend that because you're so caught up in these little words here. You're caught up in the word when you see Negro or Negras, you're stuck. Or when you see black, you're stuck. Your assumption is an original one. This is for you, brother. You ain't even black. You ain't even black. You ain't even dark complected. So how the fuck would he be talking about you? You ain't black. What other word in Spanish did they have in the 1500s to describe the people that they saw? What word? Find the word for me in the 1500s by the Jesuits focus, because we can pull up the descriptions. I know Not a Coincidence is probably listening. I know, and it comes back down to this simple point. You don't understand that the Portuguese and the Spanish made determinations that they did not see the Negroes that they see today, that they seen before. They ain't seen them in America. So there's no way that you could be these Negroes. There's two different types. To them, this is at an aging stage where they don't have genetics. This is at an aging stage where they don't even have a fucking word for who they saw. This is at the aging stage where Columbus had already dropped the words on everybody and called these motherfuckers Indians. Which is why in Jack D. Forbes' writing, when he's giving the Jesuits descriptions, that they even got the word Indios in the fucking word. In the same description that was just used earlier when he was reading from. Let the beat build.
When Africans were referred to in the Jesuit letters. So now Jesuits also went to Africa. And what's key is they refer to both dark-skinned people as different terms. So
black people aren't dark-skinned. See the problem? Black people aren't dark-skinned. Black people are not dark-skinned. So that should tell you immediately that the description, that the way the Jesuits were writing, They don't know how to find these people. They don't look like us. They have a Negro phenotype. They ain't even had the word phenotype then. So they're going to complexion, resemblance. So we're going to call them the Negroes de Terra and the Negroes de Guinea. Whoa. Why? We don't know what else to call them. They don't look like us.
They're able to distinguish both of those. Yeah, I'm going to answer all you guys.
He said, we're the Negro Indian today. You are a fucking liar. How the fuck is you the Negro Indian today? Ain't no such thing as a Negro Indian today. Because the Negro Indian today is a Negro of African descent playing Indian, you dumbass nigga. That's why I said you can't use the word Negro, because the word Negro in the 1500s did not denote the same meaning that it had in the 17th and 18th and 19th century, you dumbass nigga. You're asking questions with the source on the screen, and it is explaining to you that you're not the Negro of today. How could you be the Negro today when Jack D. Forbes' book is telling you that Negroes the Guinea? There's two separate. They don't know how to call these people what they is. Let me let them.
Guys, questions. Just bear with me. When Africans are referred to the Jesuits in the letter, they always call them Negroes de Guinea.
What up, Darren?
Negroes is the descriptive.
There was no Negroes in the Americas at all. According to the scientific evidence that we have today that supersedes the misplacement and the misnomering of denoting people across the world, we know for a scientific fact that there were no black people in the Americas, that there were no black people that was encountered by the Jesuits, that there were no black people from what the word black denotes in the Americas today. The word black means motherfuckers from Africa, people of African descent. There were no black people in the Americas. None. Find the evidence. You can't tell me or show me one genetic study that deals with the expression, the gene expression, and the genetic makeup of a motherfucking individual that would be today, in this time, black, my nigga. Go find it.
Part, the black. The Guinea is the people that they're talking about of Africa. Blacks of Guinea. Distinguish them from Negroes de Terra, blacks of the land, or America. Okay? And you can go and look up all this from Jack D. Forbes' book. He's referred to this. And we're going to get into this. All right. So now what was your question? Name an ancient Aboriginal.
Our questions is, the term Indian is just like the word black, Moor, and colored and African American. Here's why. We have yet to get in. Here's why. We never got a demonstration of how that word Indian would denote to black people. Then y'all did a whole bunch of talking. You got two crackheads on the panel. You got a dumbass black dude that think he's a fucking Jaguar and an old Mac on the panel. You got another motherfucker with dreads and a beard. He think he's a Moor. And then you got the realist under there who won't even show his face because he want to be a fitness guru. And you want to call yourself Batman as Never mind.
Heard of one another. And so this happens often in history. There's cases like this in just regular, in the small cases where people in America in your neighborhood beef with somebody, you turn to be out, that's your cousin, that's your third cousin, that's your granddaddy's sister's kids, and down that line. You see what I'm saying? And it's always those scenarios like that.
I got that whole argument that I would like to share right now, and you can read it. It's only a paragraph long. I got it right here. Let me do the share screen. You can read it. Okay, this is the representatives of Maryland. You might want to start here, so because they're in court in Pennsylvania. They're in the Pennsylvania court.
Right, absolutely. That's the main court.
This is them arguing, right? You can start
right
here.
The representative of Maryland were not conciliatory as Thomas. Speaking to the Iroquois, they said, the great king of England and his subjects have always possessed the province of Maryland, free and undisturbed from any claim by the Six Nations for above 100 years past. And you're not saying anything to us before convenience us. You thought you had no pretense to any land in Maryland, nor can yet.
Why the fuck did you bring this source up? It has nothing to do with proving that the word Indian is just like the word black, more colored, and African Americans. Nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, and what's even worse is that you went to page 40, 41, or really it's 47 of the PDF of this source, and you didn't even deal with the beginning stages of this source that lead people into what's going on. Y'all do so much motherfucking cherry picking. It's crazy. I'm gonna let y'all finish. Then I'm gonna have my time.
Find out what land or under what title you make your claim.
So this is the Black European arguing his case in court against
a Black European. There's no fucking Black European in a goddamn court arguing for some shit. How the fuck when did you make, what's the motherfucker's name? See, this is the silly shit that we talking about. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. I'm gonna let this crackhead finish.
Against the Iroquois chief. Now you're gonna read right here, because now the Iroquois gonna check.
How can we verify that this is a Black European though?
Okay, maybe it's a white guy, but this is what the niggas over here said. So this is we'll say this is A1 right now speaking.
And what year is this again? Just don't clear. My bad.
What page is this on? Page 42.
It had nothing to do
June 26
in China.
Let me get the right date.
Nothing. 1744. Go down.
Here you go. All right, 1744. And if you minus 100 years from 1744, that takes you to 1644. A few years, them bringing their asses here from England. So now here come A1 getting ready. You can say what they did because he was pissed. It's their custom. Go ahead.
All right. The Iroquois waited a day until June 26 to reply as their customs. The day's delay was meant to signal grave concern over the issue at hand. In some cases, the delay was just a matter of being polite. In this case, however, was sincere. On Tuesday afternoon, Casanagatigo rose before the assembly, assuming the posture that had caused many colonists to compare him to their image Roman and Greek ancestors, he said.
Okay, so this lines up with what Benjamin Franklin said. All these
Roman and Greek ancestors. He told you. Roman and Greek ancestors. This is a white man. You just said he was a white European. I mean, a Black European. Then he asked you about that. Then you said, okay, well, shit, he could be white. You start doing all of that. You don't know what you're talking about because you're misrepresenting the goddamn source. And we all see it live every day. You Negroes do this shit every fucking time. I don't even want to let you get this shit off, but I'm gonna let you.
Fuckers being black. Because he came back dressed in his attire. He had in his dookie rope chains. He ain't have no shirt on. He was looking fine as hell, like 50 Cent in them. So here go A1 now. Become A1 coming
This
back.
sound like a white man, but
No. Because remember, Benjamin Franklin said all these people was tawny and swarthy.
See?
Okay? The
See?
Romans, the Greek, all their asses was niggas.
See?
Now, here go
right,
A1.
so listen, let's read this. So we have to read this part right here.
This is A1 telling them, checking their ass at the door right now. Here we go.
It said, brother, what are you doing? Brother, the governor of Maryland, when you mentioned the affair of the land yesterday, you went back to old times. To us, that you had been possessed of the providence of Maryland to above 100 years. But what is 100 years in comparison to the lifetime since the claim began? Since we came out of the ground, unconsciousness, for we must tell you that long before one.
It says, for we must tell you that long before 100 years, our ancestors came out of this very ground, and their children have remained here ever since. You slid in unconsciousness, but what you're not telling the people is that there is a Iroquois person speaking. Listen, the Iroquois waited a day until June 26 to reply. So they're replying to someone, as was their custom. The day's delay was meant to signal grave concern over the issue at hand. In some cases, the delay was just a matter of being polite. In the case of, however, it was sincere. On Tuesday afternoon, Kanasatego rose before the assembly. Kanasatego is the person speaking. He rose before the assembly. Kanasatego rose before the assembly, assuming the posture that had caused many colonists to compare him to their imagined Rome and Greek ancestors. And he said, so this dude, Kanasatego, is speaking. He is an Indian. He is of the Iroquois. He is speaking and he is breaking shit down, and he's telling these white people that his ancestors been here for a very long time. So how did you make this motherfucker black? First you called him a black European. A1 challenged you on that. I mean, AP challenged you on that. You switched your shit to say something else. Then you turned back around and you came with the flim flam, boom blam. And then you said some other shit. Then you saying what Benjamin said and trying to make everybody black. Then you got this dumbass nigga who can't read this shit, and I'm gonna let him finish.
100 years, our ancestors came out this very ground, the unconsciousness, and their children have renamed here ever since. You came out of the ground in a country that lies beyond the sea. There you may have just claimed, but here you must be but here you must allow us to be your elder brethren in the lands to us before you knew.
There's no goddamn us. And the lands too belong to us before you knew anything of them. This is a Native American that is clearly in the midst of white men having this dialogue. If you don't believe what the fuck I'm saying, I'm going to make it very clear to you motherfuckers that do not ever pull up a source and share some shit on your screen and think that we don't know what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to work backwards. This is The Forgotten Founders by Bruce E. Johansson. This is Benjamin Franklin, the Iroquois, and the Rationale for the American Revolution. 1982's the date. So you know, we got the sauce. Okay? Now, I'll run it by real quick. Here's the table of contents. Okay? It says a composite culture, the pre-Columbian Republic. Our Indians have outdone the Romans. Our Indians have outdone the Romans. Chapter 4, such a union, which is what she's reading from, or what they put on the screen is in chapter 4, such a union. Chapter 5, philosopher as savage. Chapter 6, self-evident truths. And continuing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the problem that you have with non-reading mofos who look for shit as clickbait and then want to argue it. So, a composite culture, which is in chapter 1, just to give you some insight. After Christopher Columbus first encountered with a continent that he initially mistook for India, pause, that already deals with some shit A1 is against. India, Indians, Indios. Kilt. North America became the permanent home of several markedly different cultural and ethnic groups. The Age of Discovery that Columbus initiated in 1492 was also an age of cultural interchange between the peoples of Europe and the Americas. So there's a separation between the peoples of Europe and the peoples of the Americas. Each learned from the other, borrowing artifacts and ideas. This traffic continues today. The result of such extensive communication across cultural lines has produced in contemporary North America a composite culture that is rich in diversity and of a type unique in the world. The creation of this culture began with the first contact, possibly long before Columbus' landing. Fragments of pottery and a resemblance of Japanese patterns have been found in present-day Ecuador, dated well before the birth of Christ. The Vikings left some tools behind in the northeast North America. But while pottery tools and other things may be traced and dated, ideas are harder to follow through time. Thus, while the introduction of new flora, fauna, and tools has been given some study, the communication of ideas has been neglected. American Indians visited Europe before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. Squanto, Wampanoag, and other several Indians kidnapped from their native land. The immigrants called it New England. So they're telling you that before Plymouth Rock was landed on, fucking American Indians, who were the Squanto, Wampanoag, and several others, were kidnapped from their native land, which they called present day New England, right? So we're all there. Visited England, and then it tells you that they visited England during the 1614 and returned home in time to meet the somewhat bewildered pilgrims who arrived during the fall of 1620. So they were kidnapped, sent over there, went to Europe, and then brought back. And then they run into the motherfucking pilgrims. Unprepared for winter on a continent that to them was new as it was forbidding. It was the Squanto who surprised the pilgrims by greeting them in English and who helped the new immigrants survive the first winter, a season that produced the first Thanksgiving. At the first feast, Indians provided the Europeans with turkey, one of the best remembered examples of cultural interchange in the United States popular history. For his role in acculturating these English subjects to a new land, Squanto has been called a pilgrim father. So now you have just a taint, just a little bitty taint of what this shit is. This shit is clearly telling us that in this forgotten founders, that there is a reverence about the American Indians and the Europeans. Notice, you ain't heard shit about no fucking Africans or black people. So let's go on down here and get some goddamn context, because Sister Betty in her pseudo-ass ways stay trying to fuck us up. I'm going to skip ahead to chapter 2 a little bit. The Pre-Columbian Republic. Look what it says. When the Iroquois Confederacy was formed, no Europeans were present with clocks and a system of telling time before and after the birth of Christ. I want y'all to understand that. When the Iroquois Confederacy was formed, wasn't no white people around, wasn't no clocks around, wasn't no calendars or none of that shit. So what happened? Since ideas, unlike artifacts, cannot be carbon dated or otherwise fixed into unrecorded time, the exact date that the Senecas, the Onondagas, the Oneidas, the Mohawks, and the Cayugas stopped battling one another and formed the Federal Union will never be known. It is known, however, that around 1714, the Tuscaroras, a kindred Indian nation, moved northward from what is presently the Carolinas to become the 6th national member of the Confederacy. A wide range of estimates exist for the founding date of the Confederacy. The Iroquois sources using oral history and recollections of family ancestries, the traditional methods for marking time through history, have fixed the origin date at between 1000 and 1400 AD. Euro-American historians have tended to place the origins of the Iroquois League at about 1450. So, by the Iroquois account, Cartier made his first appearance among the Iroquois during the life of the 33rd presiding chief of the League. The presiding chief, Tahoro, was named to the office and held a lifetime appointment unless he was impeached for violating the Great Law of Peace. The Iroquois who used this method of tracing League's origin placed the date at between 1000 and 1100. Arthur C. Parker of Seneca used Iroquois recall of family lines and lifespans to estimate the founding date at 1390. Paul A. Wallace, A.W. Wallace, a student of the Iroquois who has written extensively about them, estimated the founding date of the League of 1450. This is only a sample of the attempts that have been made to solve an unsolvable riddle. Let me just move along, just so y'all know what this shit's about. Okay? This is why I said I don't know why she would bring up this source. It does not help. None of them. Our Indians have outdone the Romans. That's chapter 3. So I'm just going to give you a paragraph out of this. By the mid-18th century, when the alliance with the Six Nations became an article of policy with the British Crown, English colonists had been living in North America for little more than a century. The colonies comprised in a thin ribbon of settlement from a few miles of north of Boston to a few miles south of Charleston. Barely 1 million people all told. The British colonists looked westward across mountains that seemed uncompromisingly rugged to English eyes, and to the Malta continent that they already knew was many times the size of their ancestral homeland. How much larger, no one at the time really knew. No one knew exactly how wide the forest might be, how far the rivers might reach, or what lay beyond them. There was a widespread belief that the Pacific Ocean lay out there somewhere. The map makers settled for blank spaces and guesses. Across the mountains were homelands of Indian confederacies, the Iroquois to the northwest, the Cherokee southwest, and others which outnumbered the colonists and whose warriors had proved themselves tactically, if not technologically, equal to the British Army on American ground. And there were the French sliding southward and along the spine of the mountains, establishing forts at the close as Pittsburgh. The soldiers and trappers building the bases of an empire along the rivers that laced the inland forest. The British decision to seek the Iroquois' favor set in motion historical events. that were to make North America a predominantly English-speaking continent. These events are also paradoxically provided an opportunity for learning, observation, and reflection, which in its turn gave the nation to be a character distinct from England to the rest of the Europe, and which thus helped make the American Revolution possible. Skipping ahead. This shit's crazy, man. Shit is crazy. It's beyond ridiculous. So all this 1744, she brings this shit up, and I hate to work backwards. But there's a clip. This is clearly about Europeans and the Indians. Not no black people. The fucking Indians and the freaking white people. Listen to what it says here. Chapter 4, such an union. So just so y'all know how I know it was chapter 4, here you go. Y'all heard Betty say some of this shit. The representatives of Maryland were not as conciliatory as Thomas, speaking to the Iroquois, they said. To just let you know. They said what they said. Then it says the Iroquois waited a day until June 26th. Y'all heard me say this earlier to reply. So they'll let y'all know that I'm on the same type of time. So I just want to show y'all that these are Europeans and these goddamn Indians having a conversation. This ain't no black European who trying to set the record straight. This ain't no motherfucking black person speaking. A black person ain't even mentioned in this whole shit called the Forgotten Founders. Black people ain't even showing up. So it says by 1744, Ben Franklin had lived in Philly, little more than 2 decades, having fled what he regarded as Boston's spirit-crushing Puritan orthodoxy. Franklin's iconoclastic wit found a more comfortable home in Quaker Philadelphia. The city was only a quarter century old when Franklin arrived at the age of 17, a dirty, penniless young man looking for work as a printer's apprentice. During the 2 decades between his 1723 arrival and 1744, Franklin not only found work, but set up his own press, prospered along with the Quaker capital with 10,000 residents. A fertile hinterland, much larger and more productive than Boston's. Young Philadelphia already was approaching this oldest city in size. By 1744, his 38th year, Franklin had a thriving printing business that published one of the largest newspapers in the colonies of the Pennsylvania Gazette, as well as the Poor Richard's Almanac, and which appeared annually. As for the province's officially a printer, Franklin ran off his press all of Pennsylvania's paper money, state documents, the laws, and as well as job printings. As the postmaster, he was printing money. As the postmaster, he had free access to the mails to distribute the publications. If a family, especially a Pennsylvania family, kept printed matter other than the Bible in the house, it was very likely that whatever it was, newspaper, almanac, or legal documents, bore Franklin's imprint. Franklin had done more for Philadelphia than filled its bookstalls with literature. He had helped clean the city streets, construct the drainage systems, unparalleled its time. He had helped form a city fire department, hospital, library. He would soon be testing electricity and was already thinking about how it would be used for household lighting. While he detested religious orthodoxy, he shared a Puritan tribute with the merchants of young, bustling Philadelphia. He believed that hard work warmed God's heart, or, as he wrote in Poor Richard for 1736, God helped those who help themselves. Like any publisher of ambition, Franklin always kept a sharp eye out for saleable properties. During 1736, he had started printing small books containing the proceedings of Indian treaty councils. What did he do? In 1736, he started printing small books containing the proceedings of Indian treaty councils. The treaties, one of the first distinctive forms of indigenous American literature, sold quite well, which pleased Franklin, filling the seemingly insatiable appetite for the information about the Indians and the lands in which they lived. They existed at a time of both sides of the Atlantic. Franklin's press turned out treaty accounts until 1762, when journeying to England to represent Pennsylvania in the royal court. He found several English publishers in competition with him. One warm summer day in 1744, Franklin was balancing his books of his printing operation when Conrad Weiser, the Indian interpreter, an envoy to the Iroquois. So Conrad Weiser was an Indian interpreter. He was with the Iroquois when he pulled up on Franklin. What was said? He appeared at his door with a new treaty manuscript, the official transcript of a recently completed meeting between the envoys from Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland, and other segments of the Six Nation Confederacy at nearby Lancaster. Weiser and an old friend of Franklin explained that this was probably the most interesting and noteworthy treaty account he had ever brought in for publication. At last, said Weiser, the Iroquois had made a definite commitment toward the Anglo-Iroquois alliance that Pennsylvania and other colonial governments had been seeking for more than 10 years. The Iroquois explained to Weiser, "We're being careful. If they were to ally with the English, they wanted the colonials to unify the management of the Indian trade and to do something about the crazy patchwork of the diplomacy that resulted when each colony handled its own affairs with the Iroquois." Taking the handwritten manuscript from Weiser, Franklin sat at his desk and quickly thumbed through it, reading a few pages, bringing to life in his mind the atmosphere of the Frontier Council. The treaty had two main purposes, Franklin surmised. The first was to deal with the recurring problem. Here we go. This is the reason for the quotes that we're getting on the next page. Indian complaints that Englishmen, mostly Scotch-Irish frontiersmen, were moving onto Indian land without permission, disrupting hunting and social life. The second and more important objective was to polish the covenant chain to secure the alliance against the French. So the first one is the reason you're getting the quotes about our people been here since the damn beginning. You need to treat us like we're the older brother and not the little brother. You're not going to little boy us. This is what the fucking Iroquois went to tell these motherfuckers, but some kind of weird way we don't get the context, and therefore we get a motherfucking crackhead, a 50-year-old crackhead on a panel with a microphone telling us that these were black Europeans that could have been black Europeans, or they could have been white Europeans, but they were coming to set the record straight and tell these Europeans how the fuck they felt. It was the goddamn Indians from the gate, and they ain't Indians. Upset with the Englishmen, upset with the Scottish Irish frontiersmen. So as it continues, the Iroquois party consisted of 245 chiefs. They came deep, warriors, women, and children. Weiser met the party outside Lancaster, throwing his arms around his friend, Canasatego. Remember I said this name 3 times? So now we have Weiser, the white man, meeting a party outside of Lancaster, and the first person he sees, he throws his arms around them, and that's the motherfucker that does the talking in the page. Now, he said, Canasatego, who at the age of 60 was entering his last years as Speaker of the Great Council at Onondaga. So now we know why Canasatego is speaking. He's the oldest member. This is his last year before he steps down, and he is speaking on behalf of his people. Weiser, Bid all the Iroquois welcome to Pennsylvania, joking in the Iroquois language with the chiefs, who would counter him as one of their own, and adopted Mohawk, who often traveled on Onondaga to sit on the councils of the League. Weiser knew that the Iroquois expected their protocol to be followed. As guests, this meant that they had a right to adequate food and lodging after the long and tiring trip. Weiser promptly ordered a steer killed for them. While the steer was being carved in the steaks, he purchased 300 pounds of flour as well as the provisions, charging all of it to the provincial government. He treated the chiefs to a glass of rum and then another. The chiefs desirous to have one more drum, which I could not deny them, asked for more, and Weiser again brought drinks all around. The next day he entered on the expense ledger a half dozen sheep, 250 pounds of flour, bread, and other necessities. The Iroquois delegates arrived at Lancaster's courthouse on the 22nd of June in 1744 on a fucking Friday. A group of colonial delegates led by George Thomas were waiting with wind punch, pipes, and tobacco. The colonial delegates drank to the health of the Six Nations and then adjourned the meeting until Monday to give the Iroquois an opportunity to rest. For most of the next 2 weeks, the Iroquois and colonial delegates discussed invasions by squatters of the eastern slopes of the Appalachians. The delegates from Maryland and Virginia attended because both colonies claimed the land in question. Governor Thomas opened the first business session of the council, Monday, June 25th, by absorbing that during a treaty council of Philadelphia 2 years earlier, the Iroquois had requested a meeting with the governors of Maryland and Virginia concerning some of the lands with the back parts of those provinces, which they claimed a right from their conquest over the ancient possessors, and which have been settled by some of the inhabitants of the governments, Maryland and Virginia, without their Iroquois consent. So now you got squatters. These Europeans have come in these regions and have taken over land and are squatting on their fucking land. They got a problem. So they muscle up 205 people, march down and have this motherfucking conversation with somebody that they knew their culture, and they looked at him as one of the same with them, and to tell them that we need to speak to your boss. Because you got motherfuckers coming down here fucking up. Now you get into the quotes that were read. So now you should have full context that the person speaking was not a black person, that the person speaking was not a white person, that the person speaking was a person that was up in age, that was a council member for his people and was speaking on behalf of his people about what had transpired. He ain't no black Indian. He ain't no native Indian. No, this motherfucker's an Iroquois and he's upset, and they just traveled a long ass way with his old ass for him to tell these people, you need to respect us. We are your brethren. We are your brothers. We were here before you were here. You can't just come take over our land. There's got to be some respect and boundaries. I'm not making it up. We already read the shit. I ain't got to continue. Now, I didn't give you this part because he continued his argument. And he said that some Europeans assumed in error that the Indians would have perished if they had not come into the country and furnished us with straws and hatchets and guns and other things necessary for the support of life. He's telling you that now. Your European brothers and sisters came through this motherfucker chopping shit up. They thought we were gone. No, motherfucker, we here. We dip, duck, dodge, and hide low key because we can't trust you motherfuckers. He said the Indians, the sachem, reminded the colonists, lived before they came amongst us as well as or better, if we may believe what our forefathers have taught us. We had then room enough and plenty of deer, which was easily caught. By the 2nd of July, the Iroquois had been given vague assurances by the colonial commissioners that the flow of settlers into the disputed land would be controlled as much as possible. Sold these motherfuckers a wolf ticket. So Consentego had to go back and rap with his people. He wasn't black. He wasn't none of that shit that they was kicking. So why would you even say that? So that was stupid in itself. So I want to go ahead and get started with this whole shit. But I know I just went on a tangent about the last thing that they said. So what I want to do again is I want to go back to some shit Bap laid down earlier. And I want to give everybody a nice opportunity to, yeah, shit 50-year-old crackhead, bro. Fuck up. Lying ass, man. I hate people that lie on Africa. I'm going to go back again because I'm looking for an answer from Bap. Bap is supposed to be telling us how these words the same. And I want y'all to hear this shit again.
Right? A lot of us, everybody in the building that's in the building, make sure y'all support the channel. We do got the $5 challenge in effect. $5 challenge for you guys to support all Aboriginal Indigenous platforms, content, and information by simply sending in a donation with a $5 donation with a nice note attached to it, you know, giving credence or appreciation for the content and the time the brothers are able to put out for you guys. But man, y'all already know it ain't official till we get the missile. You understand? And I ain't heard a whistle. Let me shout out the chat that's in the building, man. It's your brother, Aboriginal Power, man, the hood scientist, the hood journalist, Copper Grizzly, man. Y'all already know what it is. Y'all already know. Shout out to Big Dog Philly OG, James Lattimore, Stacky, King Serpentine. We got Gable. We got my sister Empress Goddess Namo in the building. Bronze Flat Powers in her with us, Simple Amazing. The Serpent God, King Morpheus, the original, is in the building. We got my big sister, Chicka Harmony Roots, in the building. Junebug is in the building. Benny Wiggins is in the building. Humble Up is in the building. Sun Baby is in the building. Charles Clark is in the building. Mario 813 is in the building, man. Turn me up. Y'all know my slogan, man. Tribe up, wise up, rise up, man. Shout out to the Indigenous Aborigines. Y'all see the title. The term Indian is just like the word black, more, color, African American, etc., etc. You understand what I'm saying? So we kind of want to break down these terms and what these terms mean. So if y'all can just follow along with the guide, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to get straight into it. So we're going to start off with the first word that most people often like to bring in credence. We're going to use the term indigenous. What does the term indigenous means to you guys? What does the term indigenous mean to you guys in the chat? Every one of those terms you have in your title is a term used for reclassification. Absolutely. Absolutely, brother. And so let's get into it. So the term indigenous, right? A lot of us use this term to quantify who he is, right? It is a blanket term, but it is generally speaking of some type of people that reside in a land. All right, so we're going to go with the word indigenous. It is an adjective. It means born or originating. So you could be born in a particular place, or you could be the original people of a place. And you both are considered indigenous. Okay, so let's just say an Asian that comes over here and that's born in America, and just say his parents have children, and that those children are born in America, those children are indigenous. And let's just say there's people that's always been here, and so those people are also considered indigenous. And this is in particular places. So either born or originating in a particular place, 1640s from late Latin, indigenous, born in a country, native. So we're going to get to the word native in just a second. Native, from Latin, indigening, sprung from the land, native. As a noun, a native, literally inborn or born in a place, parentheses. From Old Latin, indu, parentheses, prep, in with. All right, to beget, produce, give birth, beget, with derivatives referring to the procreation of familiar familiar in tribe groups. So it's quantitative information. It's a term that could be used, but it isn't specific. It isn't inclusive. Okay. So let's move on to the next word. Are we clear on what the word indigenous means, you guys? This is a noun. And we got indigene. It's a whole different concept. We'll bring that up later. We'll see that reference. So we're going to go on to the next term that was referenced in this dialogue, which was the term native. The term native was also referred to in that definition. So we're going to try to go in order with this. So we got the term native. What does the term native mean to you guys in the chat? What does it mean to you guys in the chat? What does the term native? So the term indigenous referred to native born. So we're going to go to the word native to get a clear definition of what that means. So native, an adjective, late 14th century, native. You see it right here. Natural, inborn, here dietary. Connected with someone in a natural way. Okay, born in, raw, unspoiled, and directly from Latin native, innate, produced by birth. Okay, born, to be born, related to beget, give birth, beget derives from referring to procreation in groups as well. From earlier 15th century, born in a particular place of indigenous origins or growth, not exotic or foreign, also pertaining to one's by birth. Also, so the term indigenous and the term native, by definition, can be easily interchangeable. Their definitions almost run and emerge with one another. Are you guys with me, family? We're just slowly cooking here. We're just slowly cooking here. Are y'all with me? I want to make sure that the family is with me. Make sure y'all support the channel too, man. These are the bills that y'all need to be supporting the live streams on, man. Don't be a buster. There's a lot of haters in here that ain't gonna like this information, but we're gonna get to it. So the term native is easily justice linked to the word indigenous. So we're gonna go to another term. We're gonna go to one of the family's favorites, the term Indian. So we're gonna pull up the term Indian. It is also an adjective. What does the term Indian mean to you guys? I would like for you guys to put that in the chat. Also, share the live stream, hit that like button. It sends an algorithm key to this new software that YouTube is running off of to push the content out there. So make sure you share the live stream. Make sure you hit the like button. And most importantly, family, get into the comment section at the end of the video. Let me know how you feel. That also pushes the content out. Get into those comment sections. Let's continue these conversations in the comment section at the end of these live streams. All right. So an Indian, adjective, and also a noun. We're gonna get to both. So it's both. So an inhabitant of India or South Asia pertaining to India, and this is in 13th century. All right, and it's a noun and an adjective. Off the rip, I'm not liking the beginning coordinates of the word Indian. Off the rip, it's describing someone outside of the America in its initial definition. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna break this thing down, and we're gonna get into it. Okay. An inhabitant of India or South Asia pertaining to India, noun and adjective, from late Latin, Indius, from India, applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants of the Americas from at least 1553 as a noun in 1610 as an in 1610 as an adjective. Okay, reflecting Spanish and Portuguese use. So that means the earliest use come from Portuguese when we seen it in America, and instead of it referring to Indians, and by the 1500s, it's being applied to the Aboriginal native inhabitants. So the term Aboriginal here, we're going to have to get to that term and describe what does that mean, and we're going to get to that. So it's early Portuguese use on the mistaken notion that America was eastern end of Asia. So even within the definition of the term Indian, even though it was applied to America, they were under the notion that this is part of Asia, so these must be part of the Indians. This is what they're saying, a mistake notion. Okay. It is also used occasionally in the 18th and 19th century of any inhabitant of the Philippines, and indigenous peoples of Australia and in New Zealand. Okay. Red Indian, distinguished to the Native Americans from inhabitants of India. So we're not going to get into the Red Indian because that's not a social term that we use, but the term Aboriginal is right here. So the term Indian is a noun and an adjective, and it's a mistake notion at best. In other words, another misnomer. And it's not exclusive or specific to one particular group of people. Okay? Are y'all with me, family? Drop a fire emoji. We're just going by the simple definitions. Maybe we can get into social terms in a second. So we see the term native, we see the term indigenous, we see the term Aborigine. So let's get into the next term, Aboriginal. That was used in the last definition when we looked up Indian. So the term Indian, when it came to the Americas, was applied to the Aboriginal peoples of America. So the term Indian was a term that was placed on Aboriginal people. So let's see who the Aboriginal people are. Okay, make sure y'all support the channel, man. And y'all supposed to be hitting that motherfucker. All right, so let's go. 1660s, first earliest existence from the beginning. Okay, this is from 1660s, meaning first earliest existing from the beginning. All right, especially in reference to inhabitants of a land colonized by Europeans. Okay, so this particular term is referring to the first people or earliest existence, and that's at least according to when the time Europeans got there. So at least by the time Europeans started exploring, the people that they call Aborigines was the people that was there from the beginning to their ordinance, or that was there before them.
All right, man. Y'all should be able to hear me now. I don't know what the hell just happened. Adios. Man, I clicked the screen and I don't know. It muted me, bro. It muted me. So listen, let me go back. I know y'all saw it on the screen, but let me go back. So in semantics, meaning is just not about the definition of words. It is also about how words are used in context. For example, the word bank can have a different meaning depending on the context in which it's used. It can refer to a financial institution, the side of a river, or a place to store something. Understanding the context in which a word is used is crucial to understanding its meaning. Semantics is often contrast with syntax. While semantics is concerned with the meaning, syntax is concerned with the structure of language. Syntax is concerned with how words are combined to form phrases and sentences. It deals with the rules that govern the arrangement of words in a sentence. We ain't got to get that far because we're not dealing with syntax. We're really not dealing with semantics. Man, I can't believe y'all couldn't even hear me, bro. I don't know why it muted me. All right. So semantics is a field of study that has evolved over centuries, with different scholars and researchers contributing to its development. This section explores the historical development of the semantics, which focuses on Michael Brill, and the influences of Boas, Sefer, and Worf. But I'm not going to get into all of that. My main thing is to let you know what semantics is. Okay. Now, outside of that, I'm going to do this here. I'm going to go to race real quick. Because at the end of the day, they're using a pseudoscientific argument, and then they're trying to muster it up to mean some shit that doesn't mean anything. By the way, this is a good source to deal with a lot of topics that go on in the community, especially motherfuckers that always like to say eugenics or bring up eugenics and all this other shit. However, so dealing with race, right? Because really, at the end of the day, that's what we're dealing with. You got these Aboriginals claiming to be indigenous to this land and calling people Mongoloids and all this other shit, and then saying that they've been here and don't have the evidence. You know, the view should have went down. Yeah, there you go. All right, so here we go. Expanding on the works of Carlos Linnaeus, German professor of medicine, Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, introduced one of the race-based classifications in Our Natural Variety of Mankind. In the second edition of Blumenbach changed his original geographically based 4-race arrangement to a 5-group, one that emphasized physical morphology, the study of the form of an organism. Blumenbach's 5 categories were Caucasian, the white race, Mongolian, the yellow race, Malayan, the brown race, Ethiopian, the black race, and American, the red race. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So when he didn't want to read the etymology of the red Indian, it is because people like Blumenbach, who made these racial classifications, knew that the people that was determined to be different from the Negro, the Guinea, and which was referring to the Negro, the Terra, were actually the American red race. Now, which one of them Negroes that claim to be Aboriginal is red? I'll wait. Although he retained geographical names for these categories, the change marked a shift from geography to physical appearance. The Age of Enlightenment provided the backdrop for the 18th century European theories about human difference. Explorations of Africa, Asia, and the Americas brought Europeans in contact with people whom they found quite different. See my point? They found these people quite different. The rise of prominent Enlightenment thinkers, including Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Immanuel Kant, and David Hume, among others, greatly influenced Europeans' ideas about economics, government, and science. The framework of Enlightenment philosophy in Europe was the belief that reasons and rationality provided an authoritative system of ethics and aesthetics, values, and knowledge. I'm not going to go too far. I just wanted to touch on race very briefly. Now, let me cut all the bullshit out. Let's just deal with some shit because they was bringing up these 1,700 sources and they were saying all this old crazy shit. So I want to show y'all how people were classified, again, according to the census. Remember, Indian is supposed to be just like black, just like colored persons, just like African Americans, just like the fucking word more. However, in the first census, they had slaves, free white and females and males, all white, and then all other persons. In the first census, who the fuck was all other free persons? They had already denoted slaves to being one type of group of people. It's three different groups of people right here. It's all other free persons. It's the free white and male and female, and then you got slaves. In the next census, they got free white females and males, all other free persons. They ain't got slaves on that one. Then they go on. Then they got slaves again in 1810. Free whites, all other persons. 1820. They got, look, now we see colored persons, right? We see slaves, and then we see colored persons. Then we see free white female and males, and then all other persons. Who the hell do y'all think all other persons is? They continued this path off on and on, evolving into more of an understanding as every 10 years evolved. We got a new way to look at shit. Almost to the point that they just stopped saying white females and males and just put white. Then they put black and mulatto in the blue. Then they got Chinese. Then they got fucking Indians coming up. All this in the 1860 census. But prior to the 1860, the motherfucking Indians wasn't even on the census. But they were called Indian before that. So that's my whole entire point. And look how Indian evolved into American Indian, and then Eskimo, then Aleut Eskimo Indian, which is American Indian. They got American Indian or Alaskan Native, and then all the way up in the present, American Indian or Alaskan Native. From 1860 to present. But prior to 1860, they had no classification for Indian. Well, I fucked it up, and I apologize. From 1870, I said 1860. Yeah, 1860 was the first of Indian. So from 1860 onward, you would see Indian. But beyond that point, you had no from 1850 to 1790, you didn't have a classification for Indian. There was none. Indian would be the pink crew. All other free persons. Because at this time, they ain't enslaving Indians. And this is the crazy part of it all. But to just to kind of keep on going, you know what I mean? Because this whole thing is about how are you, right? How are you going to, this source, this backs up the other source. So I really ain't got to read it, but it's showing from, 1790 to 2020. But how are you going to say that the word Indian is used just like these other words when they never have had the same meaning or intent or purpose? For you to even sit there and do that. So this is why I didn't want to use the other one, because it says that this one and this one. All of these, since anything census data related, are supporting the earlier notion of what I showed y'all, how the census was written by the numerators at those times and how people was recognized or classified. And that's why I didn't get into these. These support all of that. And as I told you before, American Indians were not identified as such until 1860, when the racial category of Indian was being added. Beginning in 1890, the census included a complete counts of American Indians and tribal lands, yada, 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 yada. And we've had this conversation. Again, we know about racial classifications in the Americas. This article goes back to support the beginning shit that I just showed y'all from the chart and how it goes down. They didn't put black Indian. They didn't put white Indian. They put Indians. Now, let's get to it. And I'm going to be brief. I ain't going to drag it out. The invention of the Indian. One of the first acts of the European colonization of the Americas was an act of naming, or more accurately, misnaming. The Indian began as a white man's mistake and became a white man's fantasy. Through the prism of white hopes, fears, and prejudices, indigenous Americans would be seen to have lost contact with reality and to have become Indians. That is, anything non-natives wanted them to be. Dr. Francis, a historian. Since the classical ages, when the Greek and Roman cultures flourished, Europeans have been fascinated by people who lived elsewhere, populations unknown outside of Europe. First, the Europeans called them barbaric. Later, when the European became Christian, they were referred to as pagans. Later still, Europeans called them uncivilized. With little communication and minimum travel options, news about Asians, Africans, and later the people of the Americas traveled slowly, where source formation lagged and lacked. The European imagination filled in the gaps in the misconceptions and stereotypes soon as the language describing non-Europeans began to take the negative and romantic tones, reflecting European anxieties about the people who live elsewhere. Man, let me know if y'all can still hear me. When the first Europeans explorers landed in Americas in 1492 with Columbus, they referred to the entire indigenous population as a continent as Indians because they believed that they had arrived in India. Although it quickly became clear that this was not the case, the name stuck. One of the first acts of the European colonization of the Americas then was not to take in indigenous lands for settlement. It was an act of naming, or more accurately, misnaming. The Europeans imposed this single inaccurate label upon a variety of different peoples. That said, Columbus' encounter with the New World did not involve just words. It was extremely violent and included forced servitude, kidnapping, and mass killings. In writing about the new people they met, the Europeans assumed a very clear hierarchy between the superior West and the inferior New World. To begin with, the Europeans who had developed a written culture earlier on tended to view the history and culture of peoples without a writing language as inferior. Since indigenous traditions were not recorded in writing, they were deemed unreliable, mythological, and fiction. Similarly, Europeans dismissed the spirituality of the indigenous peoples as superstitious and their understanding of the world as its creation as a myth. Some European writers saw indigenous peoples as nobles, exotic figures, but this image was a myth in itself. The noble, free, pre-social being was largely a figment of the imagination of Englishmen and Frenchmen who romanticized a life without the constraints and the corruption of their civilization. Pushed to the extreme, this view of indigenous peoples living in primitive, pre-civilized life implies that they also behave like animals. Consider, for example, what the French priest Louis Hennepin had to say about the first peoples he encountered in 1683. The Indians trouble themselves very little with our civilities. Men and women hide only their private parts. They eat in a snuffling way and puffing like animals. In fine, they put no restraint on their actions and follow simply the animals. Other Europeans, including many missionaries who worked in the colonial Canada, viewed indigenous populations through the lens of religion. To them, these children of nature were living an example of the biblical story of Adam and Eve. In their Garden of Eden, they lived in blissful, childlike ignorance and sin. Some Christians called them noble savages and believed that with time and proper religious environment, the primitive Indian could achieve civilization just like the modern European man. Such Europeans further believed that the differences between the cultures were not innate, for all humans were alike in the eyes of God. As one of the earlier North American missionaries told the indigenous peoples he encountered, the Christian God is a God that would be fond of them, to seek him with all their hearts, and hears all their prayers of all the men, Indians as well as English. This idea was a leading mindset behind the establishment of religious residential schools. So was the idea of childlike Indian, these people were to become wards of the state of their own protection, and so that they would be civilized in the long run, become part of the European Canada society. But for some, the difference between the unreligious pagan and the Christian was vast, even impossible gap to bridge. By the middle of the 19th century, impatience with the progress of the civilizing process led to frustration and to yet another stereotype. Now, some came to see these people not only as savages, but also as wretched Indians, cunning, vile, detestable beings. By the end of the 19th century, Canadian officials had embraced a similar idea and started a campaign to assimilate the Indian using the residential schools. That's all I'm going to give you from there. We still going to deal with this origin, right? From a historical perspective, right? All right, good. Have you ever wondered about the origin and history of the word Indian? It's a term that has been used for centuries to refer to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, but its origins and implications are complex. In this article, we'll take a historical perspective and delve into the origins of the word and its impact. I'm not going to give you all of it, but some of it. The term Indian has a long and convoluted history, stemming from Christopher Columbus mistaking belief he had reached India where he had landed in the Americas. This misnomer has had a far-reaching consequences, shaping the narrative and perception of native peoples. Join us as we explore the fascinating evolution of the word Indian and gain a deeper understanding of its significance in the context of history and identity. Origins of the word Indian. The term has had its complex and history has undergone various interpretations and transformations throughout time. Its origins can be traced back to Christopher Columbus' arrival in the Americas in 1492 when he mistakenly believed he had reached India. Columbus referred to the indigenous peoples he encountered as Indians, a term that has persisted as a label of Native Americans and the broader indigenous populations of the Americas. The word Indian is derived from the Latin word Indianus, which means of India or from India. So I don't know why he got a problem. AP got a problem with that. This etymology reflects the initial misperception that Columbus had reached the Indian subcontinent. Despite the historical inaccuracy, the term became widely accepted and has been used for centuries to refer to the native inhabitants of the Americas. Since its inception, the term Indian has been a subject of debates and controversies. Reading is an appropriateness of accuracy. Some argue that it perpetuates a colonial mindset and reinforces stereotypes and misconceptions about indigenous peoples. Others argue that reclaiming and redefining the term can be a way to assert indigenous identity and challenge colonial narratives. It is important to recognize that the term Indian is a colonial construct that does not necessarily reflect the diverse cultures, language, and histories of the indigenous peoples and the encompasses. Their preferred terms may vary among different tribes and communities, and it is crucial to respect their self-identifications and use the terms they prefer. Remember, he said this shit is used the same way as blacks, more African American, what else did he say? Colored, and all of that. And yet we've read 2 sources or 3 in regard to actual the word Indian, and it does not negate or even continue along those paths. Now I'm not going to read this one, but of course everybody knows that I left some hella fire sources in the chat for you to learn from. So the semantic development of the word black. So now we're going to deal with this. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. And just to kind of, I don't want to give y'all all of this because we've already dealt with this shit before. That's why I'm skipping ahead. This word has so many different, well, let me go back. Let me not do y'all like that. According to the American Heritage Dictionary, the Indian European root for black is bahil, with a variant from the bahele or the bahel, which means shine, flash, or burn. The Proto-Germanic developments of the bahel or blackas, which specifically means burned, and a variant form of blackan, which means to make white. Hence, the ancient dramatic meaning of black provided the immediate semantic source for both the literal and the metaphorical uses that we make of the word black today. Apparently, the association between the Indo-European root and its Proto-Germanic equivalent, blackas, is that the Indo-European use of balek as the root for any process that is associated with light, like burning, and its Proto-Germanic peoples use the term or the word blackas to describe the appearance of a thing after it undergoes the burning process. In Old English, black extends its range by acquiring derivatives. Thus, Old English has 2 forms of black, black, block, and black. Although Old English has 2 forms of black, black is the form that appears most frequently in Old English literature, whereas both in Indo-European, balek, and the Proto-Germanic blackas are adjectives. Old English has several derivatives where black is used as a noun, a verb, and as a root word with which to form compounds. Moreover, Old English retains both the Indo-European and Proto-Germanic terminologies in both black and black. Although Bosworth Tallis' Old English Dictionary implies that black is limited to the Indo-European meaning, pale or livid, and that black picks up the Proto-Germanic meaning, burn. Tallis' study itself, along with the Old English literature, suggests that the 2 forms were used interchangeably, with black as the dominant spelling. Black means shining, pale, as well as dark black or swarthy. Black is also used as a noun and a verb and is the root word for compounds. Interestingly enough, in a verb, black in Old English makes a Proto-Germanic blacken, which means to make white. Consequently, Old English, finding the source of black and blacken in Indo-European, retains the double meaning of the word that is lost in the Middle English period. See what I'm saying? So you really want to get into the etymology and the origin of an actual word, and you want to deal with this shit, this is how you deal with it. Right here. Now, all that shit I read, out of all this shit that I just mentioned, none of that can be equated to Indian. All the shit that we just read, not one of them words equaled Indian or the likeness. Next word, fucking bullshit. I'm keeping this quick. Moor is an English usage of a Moroccan or formerly a member of the Muslim population of El Andalus, now in Spain and Portugal, of mixed Arab, Spanish, and Amazigh Berber origins. The Moors created the Islamic Andalusian civilization and subsequently settled as refugees in the Maghreb between the 11th and 17th centuries. By extension, corresponding with the Spanish word Moro, the term occasionally denotes any Muslim in general, as in the case of the Moors of Sri Lanka or in the Philippines. Today, the term Moor is used to designate the predominant Arab Amazigh ethnic group in Mauritania, which makes up more than 2/3 of the country's population, and the small Arab Amazigh minority in Mali. So one more time, they're letting you know. So all this old black more bull mumbo jumbo, no. Miss me with that. Stop making up shit. Let's see if colored, Negro, or African American would get us back to Indian. Historically, there have been many terms used to describe people of African descent in North America. In the late 19th and 20th centuries, two words that were more commonly used were colored and Negro. Negro in particular was widely used by African American people themselves, and it was considered a term of respect when used by others. Writers like W.E.B. Du Bois made a specific case for it, such as in 1928 letter, where he argued that Negro is etymologically and phonetically much better than a logical and more logical than African or colored, or any various hyphenated circumlocutions. Though Du Bois had prominent position for many years in the civil rights organization that used the word colored, he tended to use Negro in almost all of his own writings, including The Crisis, intended to prefer them, the Negro over colored. We see this preference even as early as his first book, The Philadelphian Negro, in 1899. This article is not going to give you a equivalent to Indian. Neither are any etymological explanations of any of the words that were used today or in the video that we watched. I mentioned Jack D. Forbes earlier, and I'm not going to go over this because we keep going over this and we've done this shit time and time and time and time again. We got the book. We then went to the pages. We read 50 pages to that motherfucker. What's his name? Forgot his name. But we read about 50 pages to him, and that shit just keeps going on and on and on and on, and we just, you know, we don't want to keep that shit up. So, in 1854, the California State Supreme Court sought to bar all non-Caucasians from equal citizenship and civil rights. The court stated, the word black may include all Negroes, but the term Negro does not include all black persons. We are of the opinion that the words white, Negro, mulatto, and black persons, whenever they occur in your Constitution, must be taken in their generic sense. That the words black person in the 14th section must be taken as contradistinguished from white, and necessarily includes all races other than Caucasians. As convoluted as a quote may be, it tends to express a strong tendency in the history of the United States toward creating two broad class people, white and non-white, citizen and non-citizen, or semi-citizen. The tendency to create a two-caste society, here we go, a two-caste society, often clashed with the reality of a territory which included many different types of people of all colors and different degrees of intermixture of European, American, African, and Asians. Well, what happened? Native American people, whether of unmixed ancestry or mixed with other stocks, were at times affected by the tendency to create a purely white black social system, especially when living away from a reservation at the ancestral homeland. In the British slave colonies of North America along the Atlantic coast, many persons of American ancestry were at times classified as blacks, Negroes, mulattoes, or people of color. And these terms were of course, used for people of African ancestry. The manner in which Americans and part Americans were sometimes classified as mulattoes and people of color from New England to South Carolina into the Spanish Empire are explored elsewhere. We could get into that elsewhere. The purpose here is to illustrate how the term Negro has also been applied to people of American descent. This is what they don't want to do. Why is this word being used to other people? So this article, y'all, is explaining away to the shit that I was saying earlier. The possibility that Native Americans were quite commonly called Negroes is very much supported by the Portuguese usage. During the colonial period, Brazilian Indians were repeatedly referred to as Negroes or as Negroes de Terra, Negroes of the land. A great many examples from the 16th century and later centuries are cited by George Frederici in his analysis of the Portuguese sources. These do not have to be repeated here, but suffice to say that it is common that finally in 1755 a royal decree had to be issued as follows. Listen to this decree. Among the regrettable practices which have resulted in the disparagement of the Indians, one prime abuse is the unjustifiable and scandalous practice of calling them Negroes. They made a mistake calling them Negroes. Perhaps by so doing, the intent was no other than to induce in them the belief that by their origins they had been destined to be the slaves of the whites, as is generally conceded to be the caste of blacks from the coast of Africa. The directors will not permit henceforth that anybody may refer to an Indian as a Negro, nor that they themselves may use the epithet among themselves as is currently the case. This Portuguese usage is extremely significant, not only because American or part American slaves could be referred to as Negroes in early ship records, but also because it very much affects one's analysis of population statistics in colonial Brazil, where in fact the categories of Negro and mulatto must have often included domesticated or enslaved Indians with mixed blood. And so far as the term Negro became synonymous with slave or serval status, it lost any specific color reference and became a general term of abuse, the darker people preferring to be called the preto as a result. It is highly likely that the Spaniards also referred to slaves generally as Negroes in the Caribbean, and that the Dutch took over the same general practice, since Negro and Neger were not Dutch words and had no immediate equivalent except swath, donker, or bruin. Yeah, swarthy, swath. A Dutch-French-Spanish dictionary, 1639, has the following entry: Spanish, Negro, nor, sombre, obscure, of skeek, brune. French, swart, donker, bruin, Dutch. Thus, Spanish Negro could be translated as dark or brown, as well as black, swart. Undoubtedly, this usage facilitated making differences to all slaves and Negroes or Negers in Dutch language. Moreover, it is significant that a Spaniard resided in the Antwerp in the early 17th century. The preparer of the dictionary saw Negro as being translated in a number of ways in both French and Dutch. By the later half of the 16th century, English were referring to people of Africa as Ethiopians, Blackamoors, Negroes, and Moors, somewhat interchangeably. Negro gradually came to be the dominant term, especially after exhaustive contact with Spanish and the Portuguese. What is not clear in the extent to which the term Negro was consciously translated as black. The automatic association of Negro with black color cannot be assumed, since many black Africans are actually a medium or dark brown color. In any case, another association gradually arose, and that was between Negro and slave. Early legislation commonly referred to Negro and other slaves, or to Negro, mulatto, and Indian slaves over the years. Negro and black both became synonymous with enslavement. In 1702, an observer wrote that the wealth of Virginia consisted of slaves or Negroes. By 1806, Virginia judges ruled that a person who was of white appearance was to be presumed free. But in the case of a person visibly appearing to be of a slave race, it is the incumbent upon him to make out his freedom. In 1819, South Carolina judges stated flatly, the word Negro has a fixed meaning, slaves. What the English meant by the term Negro when they first began to use it is not clear. Certainly, it was not synonymous with slave, and has a great many persons so classified were free, both in England and in Virginia. Did it mean an African, a black person, or any dark-skinned individual? Today, the term is not widely employed in Britain, although the word black is used to refer to people of various skin colors from all South Asia, Middle East, and West Indies, and Africa. Most Native Americans, if living in Britain today, would be regarding as being black, especially if their ancestry were not known. See the confusion? Negroes was also used in general way in the North American colonies. Some examples illustrate the use of Negro and black as applied to people of American ancestry. An example from the West Indies is especially illuminating. In 1764, William Young was sent to St. Vincent as a part of the British occupation of the island. Living on St. Vincent, where there were about 3,000 black Caribs or free Negroes, about 100 red Caribs or Indians, you see the difference, and some 4,000 French and their slaves, according to the Young. The British found it difficult to control the Caribs, and wars were fought with them in 1771 and 72, and again during 1795 and 96. During the later crisis, Young wrote an extremely anti-Carib tract designated to prove that the Caribs should be removed from St. Vincent. They were eventually defeated, and some 5,000 were shipped to an island near the coast of Honduras. Young was anxious to prove that the so-called black Caribs were not true Aborigines, but were in fact Negro colonists, free Negroes, or free usurpers. This was important to him because he wanted to show they had no bona fide land rights or Aboriginal title. Like these niggas ain't gotten there today, but they sitting here trying to claim that they're Aboriginal and indigenous to this land, yet they can't get no land rights. For our purpose, the interesting point admitted that Young is that the so-called blacks or Negroes were occasionally of tawny and mixed complexions because of American ancestry, and that their customs, personal names, and languages were those of the native Caribs. Still further, Young admitted that they had repeatedly intermarried with American women. He consistently refers to them as Negroes nonetheless. Young also relayed a great deal of hearsay information about how the black Caribs had originated, which is without foundation for analysis here. The important point is this, that a people thoroughly American in identity, culture, and language were called black and Negroes solely because of being mixed with African ancestry. This tendency continues incidentally among the white scholars who, even today, refuse to accept the Caribs' avowed feeling of Indianness and continue to call them black. In 1619, some 20 Negroes were brought to Virginia. At least 11 have names of Spanish or probably Spanish character. Later, they were joined by Negroes and mulattoes with names such as Antonio and John Pedro. These Spanish-derived servants could well have been part of American ancestry. However, no evidence is available except that they were largely secured from captured Spanish vessels. We do have the information that will let us know who those people were, but I'm going to continue. Because the time of this being written is crazy. In 1767, the Gowan, an Indian servant, acquired his freedom in Virginia. 2 decades earlier, Mahil Gowan, called a Negro, also acquired his freedom. It would occur that the Negro was probably father to the Indian in this case. 1670, the population of Virginia colony said to be 40,000, including 2,000 black slaves. Evidence indicates that there could not have been that many Africans there, and also that there were a great many American slaves or servants. Thus, the total of blacks must have included a good many Americans. 1698, 3 fugitive Negroes were reported in North Carolina, of whom one was an American. Similarly, a list of Negroes imported in Virginia, 1710 to 1718 by sea, includes at least 69 Indians, mostly from the Carolinas. Likewise, list of Negroes brought in New York from 1750 to 36 include many slaves of probable or stated American ancestry from Campeche, Jamaica, Honduras, and the Carolinas of Virginia. My casing point is what has been said earlier about the use of the word Negro here and its misrepresentation being clearly designated to a people who were not descendants of Africa. Yet they had no other way of describing or giving a description of who these people were. That's why you can't misrepresent J.D. Forbes' work. He's already been on a mission to correct you motherfuckers, and y'all still keep on making up shit. What up, Shabaka? What up, Ogun? So when A1 comes on the air and he says that the word Indian is no different than all these other words and he could show proof, he's a fucking liar. And I'm leaving it at that. I put all my sources in the description. I provided everything that needed to be provided. And I've been waiting for AP to come outside. Come outside, AP. Show us these white slaves in America owned by black people. Show us how the word Indian is to also denote or be used in the same sense and matter as Moor, as black, as colored, as African American. Articulate your argument better than you have been, because you've just been going live on air and just been saying stupid ass shit. I'm not back, but I decided to go live today. So I'm gonna use the rest of this time to kind of rest up, because my clock is off. I've been going hard while I was on vacation. And I'm gonna let y'all digest on this shit. And when I come back, you motherfuckers better have some answers.
How the fuck y'all find an African in my fucking family,
He
but y'all
died
ain't
by
find
his
y'all?
own genealogy.
Shut the fuck up. That don't make sense, for one. Listen, y'all don't know what y'all did.
Feel like you standing on business.
Y'all lied on me, because y'all don't even know if that's me. And if y'all can trace that shit back to it's me, it's only 2 people in YouTube that got my information.
Yeah, he died by his own genealogy. You ain't an Indian, you ain't got a lot of meat. Half of this track, best believe you lose a lot of sleep. Probably because you made it up to us honestly. You ain't a Cherokee, nope. You ain't a Chickasaw, nope. You ain't a Blackfoot, nope. Nigga, get lost. You just a fool with low comprehension. So I gotta come through with the henchmen. NAC, Sean P, Shy Son, Lucky. Don't forget Jay, got no time to play. Call that apple slipping with his genealogy. Now he's a con and I ain't talking about a singer. I'm coming for the top apple leader. He ain't a teacher, he's a preacher. He can't keep up, so we leave him. Yeah, he died by his own genealogy. You ain't an Indian, you ain't got a lot of me. Half of the track, best believe you lose a lot of sleep. Probably because you made it up to us possibly. You ain't a Cherokee, no. You ain't a Chickasaw, no. You ain't a Blackfoot. Nigga, get lost. You just a fool with low comprehension. So I gotta come through with the henchmen. NAC, Sean P, Shy Son, Lucky. Don't forget Jay, got no time to play. Caught an apple slipping off his genealogy. Now he's a con. OTK. TKO. Now he's a con. OTK. You died. TKO. By your own genealogy.